before I get started with this one, I should tell you that I do not believe in the Lavender Town syndrome. But anyway, here we go. The first case of the Lavender Town tone and associated events were reported a few months after the release of Pocket Monsters Red and Green for the handheld Game Boy video game console. These video games were wildly popular with children between the ages of 7 and 12, their core demographic, which was no doubt one of the reasons why the Lavender Town tone had the level of severity that it did. In the game, the player takes on a role of a trainer whose task is to capture, tame, and train wild creatures called Pocket Monsters for battle. These games and the two newest additions to the series, Pocket Monsters Gold and Silver, and anime, manga, figures, a collectible card game, and home console games have resulted in Pocket Monsters becoming a multi-billion-dollar franchise. In one part of the game, the trainer to a small out-of-the-way place called Lavender Town. This town is one of the smallest hamlets in the game, aside from the trainer's own hometown, and possesses very few of services available to the trainer in every other city in the game. Indeed, the location would be unremarkable if it weren't for the Pokemon Tower located there, a colossal building that holds graves for hundreds of deceased Pokemon. It is theorized because of the location in the game, at least 200 children lost their lives, and many more developed sudden illness and afflictions. And this does not consider the vast waves of unreported illnesses or deaths that went unnoticed. History of the pathology. It was not until summer of 1996 that cases would eventually become linked to the Lavender Town tone and began to surface. The earliest record of the acknowledgement of the effects of the Lavender Town tone that the author could find came from internal report made in June 1996 by the company Game Freak Incorporated, which was leaked by one of its former employees, Ms. Sato Haru. In it, an employee gives a list of names, dates, and symptoms, records of children between the ages of 7 and 12 who had suffered various medical problems as a result of playing Pocket Monsters Red and Green versions. Some are listed below with the full listing in the appendix. It should be noted that the entries in the appendix also include the symptoms born from the Lavender Town tone and audio phenomenon, but from the so-called White Hand Sprite, ghost animation, and buried alive model, all of which were visual phenomenon that provoked similar but distinct symptoms. April 12th, 1996. Obstructive sleep apnea, severe migraines, torrhalgia, tinnitus. May 23rd, 1996. General irritability, insomnia, addiction to video game nosebleeds, developed into violent streaks against others and eventually himself. April 27, 1996. Cluster headaches, irritability, eventually took mixed painkillers. March 4th, 1996. Migraines, sluggish and slow behavior, unresponsiveness, developed into deafness and went missing. Body discovered beside road, April 20th, 1996. The document was circulated internally. Was the first time those incidents had been connected with the Pocket Monsters video games. Until then, the cause had not been discovered or diagnosed by the medical professionals. Indeed, it is uncertain how the company themselves managed to find the cases related to the event without seeking advice from health services. Predominant symptoms related to what became known as Lavender Town tone, or what we know them as Lavender Town tune, included headaches, migraines, bleeding from the eyes and ears, mood swings and irritability, addiction to the games, unprovoked violence, withdrawal and unresponsive, and in approximately 67% of the cases, suicidal tendencies. However, these symptoms only manifested in children between the ages of 7 and 12 years old who had reached the area in the game known as Lavender Town, most of whom were revealed to have been wearing headphones or earphones while playing the game. As it turns out, the developers of Lavender Town area had sought to make an area that would leave an impression, according to Seiki Uchida, who was a member of the development team. Seiki claimed that at the time of development, a number of the team were interested in making Lavender Town a little different to the rest of the game. The Pokemon Tower is a visible result of that, Seiki told Game Dimensions magazine in an interview earlier this year. That and the fact that Lavender Town is so different from all the other cities in the game. It is smaller, it has fewer people occupying it, it didn't have a gym, and of course the music was very, very eerie. In fact, the first version of the game, we were told to slightly change the song played in the background of Lavender Town because our manager told us it would make children upset. The music used in subsequent versions is different. Either Seiki was unaware of the full impact of Lavender Town tone, or was vastly understated how upset children would get. No more is said about the music in the article, but there are mentions of Lavender Town's other macabre features. What Seiki failed to disclose to Game Dimensions magazine was the music used in the first wave release of the Pocket Monsters. Red and Green was formulated out of an experiment binaural beats using slightly different frequencies of sound. Each frequency played in one ear through earphones or headphones. Various psychological effects can be induced upon the listener. In most versions, of the first wave releases. This was resulted in the player feeling uneasy, apprehensive, and mildly disturbed. However, for upwards of 200 children, it provoked a variety of disturbances in the brain that went undetected purely because it was undetectable and by fully developed human ears. Instead, only children fell victim to the tones, resulting in psychological problem that in some cases led to death, many of which were suicides. These visual effects are known among programming circles as the white hand sprite, ghost animation, and the buried alive model. Each has been found to cause headaches, nausea, and severe case hemorrhaging of the brain and lungs. While around 70% of Lavender Town syndrome, also known as LTS, is due to the lavender tone, the remaining percentage is split among these visual phenomena. This is partly due to the visual stimuli occurring after the player is introduced to the Lavender Town tone. It has been theorized that those who are unaffected by the oral stimulation, such as the deaf or hard of hearing, make up the remaining 30%. While viewing these models can cause these effects, there are certain methods that allow a viewer to safely examine them in detail. The white hand sprite, known as the white hand GIF. This was scripted to appear as a Pokemon on the 3rd floor of the Lavender Tower. It is divided into 4 separate animations. In introduction, the cry of Pokemon unleashes before battle an idle and 2 attacks. These attacks are unknown as they are simply as fist and brutal. While viewing the animation has been proved to be hazardous, viewing the frames of the model has been proven to have no adverse effects. The white hand is depicted as a shriveled, slightly decayed hand. With a surprising attention to detail, flesh is peeling back from the bone, and several tendons dangle realistically out of the wrist. The first attack is the hand balling into a fist and swinging forward. However, the brutal animation is missing several frames. The hand seems to open up, then cuts out. After a few seconds, it reappears closed again. No record has been found out of these missing frames. Alright, next one. Ghost animation, which you have probably seen 100 times. The ghost animation is coded as haunting.swf, was intended to be placed in several areas throughout the tower, including the center of a path on the 2nd floor. However, players cannot interact with it, leaving many to believe that it was intended as a background feature. The ghost animation as well must be viewed in individual frames. It is comprised of 59 frames total. However, after extraction, around half of these frames have been revealed to be the standard ghost model used in Pocket Monsters. Around a quarter of the remaining frames are comprised of static to produce a fading effect. However, interspersed with these bursts of static are several frames of screaming faces, along with the images of a skeletal man in a cloak, hypothesized to be the Grim Reaper, and of several killed corpses. The meaning behind these are unknown. While under oath before the video game's commission board, the lead programmer Hishiyashi Sogabi testified as to having no knowledge as to where these images surfaced. Out of all of the phenomena, I don't know how to say that word, so don't judge me, associated with LTS, this animation is the most speculated on in his thesis, video games and the manipulation of the human mind, viewable in Appendix C. Dr. Jackson Turner argued that the images were intentionally placed in due to their brief time appearing on the screen and the graphic nature of the frames. Turner theorizes that they were meant to subliminally influence the players into becoming more frightened by the disturbing surroundings. Buried Alive, often referred to as its code, the Berryman script. The Buried Alive model was to be found on the final story of Pokemon Tower, and what has now been replaced with the Marowak Ghost. According to the scripts assigned to it, the Buried Alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. Once reaching the top of the floor, the following conversation would have taken place. Okay, so this is what it says. It's basically what Buried Alive said. You're here. I'm trapped, and I'm lonely. So very lonely. Won't you join me? After this, the battle would have been initiated. Once in battle view, the Buried Alive model appears to be a decaying human corpse attempting to crawl out of the ground. It has been programmed to have two white hands, as a Gengar and a monk. Or a Gengar and a monk. Strangely enough, a protocol for the Buried Alive's actions after it was defeated were not written. In the case of the player defeating him, the game would freeze. However, a specific game ending was written by an unknown programmer upon losing the battle. This ending, the Buried Alive was to have stated, "Finally, fresh meat," followed by several lines of gibberish. He was then to have dragged the player character into the ground surrounding him. The scene would finish with a typical game over screen. However, in the background, an image of the Buried Alive character devouring the player was to have been shown. Especially strange are the protocols after the scene. The cartridge was to download this image to a small internal memory contained in the Game Boy. Overwriting the title screen was normally accompanied a Game Boy turning on. Instead, whenever it was started, the player would view this image as a sound file, static mesh.wav, was played. The intended purpose for this effect, unlike many other of the factors leading towards LTS, is unknown. This is the author's note. Everything listed here is completely true, all from official findings. Earlier, I also found other information regarding the makers of the sound files, how they committed suicide, but I can't find it anywhere. I searched around multiple Google pages and even my browser history. That information is nowhere to be found. If anyone has more information regarding the Pokemon Green or Red versions before I recall in Japan, please let me know so I may be able to tell the world. Well, whether it's actually true or not is a matter of opinion. You see, what I found out was completely interesting. You hear about the, well, don't hate because I have an opinion. Anyway, what I found out was that the original Japan version and the American, one in the US was the same. These researches that they are looking up. Okay, so the white hand, well, I've looked it up. It's kind of disturbing. What happened was, I don't even know myself. Anyway, what basically was going on between those things was a complete mystery, and I did not search on how they actually destroyed themselves or killed themselves. But I read a few stories about how they could possibly kill themselves. Well, this one girl, she tried this Lavender Town music out with headphones, and she yearned to hear it all the time, every day before she got home from school. After she got home from school, I mean. And one day her headphones broke, and it wasn't the same without them. And it wasn't the same. She was yearning to play it. She was yearning to hear the music with her headphones. She killed herself because she couldn't hear the music anymore. She said she knew why they killed themselves. If they couldn't hear it, they didn't want to be living anymore. That's basically how I heard it anyway. If you think this is wrong, please do not hate on me because I have an opinion. Please, if you want to hate on me, I guess you could, but I prefer you not. So, thanks for listening. And, by the way, check it out. Just kidding. Anyway, later. Hope you guys